Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream. Thank you so much for everyone who's been waiting. And welcome to all of our members, subscribers, and viewers, and new subscribers and viewers as well. Welcome to another live stream. Had no videos today, but of course, we're going to have another live stream. We don't have video, we have a live stream. And maybe I'll pop a video for you guys afterwards. As usual, let's wait a sec to make sure everything's up and running before we go into our topic tonight. If you're new to this channel, our live streams are more in-depth. My videos are usually shorter for all of you who want shorter updates. And again, welcome everyone. Looks like we're up and running now. Are we or are we not? Can you see me? Can you hear me? It looks like you can. It looks like you can. Yes, you can. Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome. Like I said, I didn't post a video, but I was obviously I can't not have a live stream with you. So we're having this live stream. And I wanted to talk obviously about the latest updates from Gaza, obviously, and Netanyahu primarily, and his latest attempts to go on an all-out war with Lebanon, and his visit to the US, and what he's doing now, and what the Israelis are saying, what the families of the prisoners are saying, what's happening between him and the heads of the delegation, who are the heads of certain security establishments in Israel. But before I go into all of that, have you seen this? Just want to check if you haven't watched this video.
Before, Russia will not prevail in this war. Ukraine will prevail in this war, and we'll stand with them every single step of the way. That's what the compact says, loudly and clearly. And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin.
He does it again. This Biden guy. If there's one good thing about Biden, is that he gives us a good laugh, this man. President Putin. And Zelensky was upset. Zelensky looked at it like that. So we have a Mexican president in Egypt, and we have Putin. I'm sure some of you saw this video, but I had to share it with you. In case you haven't. Oh my God. He makes me laugh, but and he's still the president, he's still the president. Sisi is the Mexican president, the courageous, brave president of Ukraine is Putin. Oh my. Whew. Yeah. I had to show you that. Anyway, apart from that, to our topic. And obviously, I'll open the live stream for you afterwards for any questions or comments. And I'll try and be brief about it as much as possible. Firstly, the families of the prisoners in, and thank you for your super, the Incog, thank you so much, and Koopa Koop, thank you so much. I'll get to you in a sec. The families of the Israelis who are kidnapped in Gaza, the Israeli prisoners, are fuming with Benjamin Netanyahu. We spoke in the last couple of days about Netanyahu's latest statements when it comes to him adding conditions that are not in the ceasefire agreement. like not ending the war, not allowing Hamas fighters to go to the north, all of these things, and his fierce statements that are primarily there, or obviously for his base, but obviously they hinder the negotiations. You can't have negotiations and have certain agreements and come out with statements like that in the middle of the negotiations. If you want to say something afterwards, after everything has been signed, you can potentially get away with it because you're still kind of bound by it. But now, in the middle of it, people are blaming him that he's trying to hinder it. Primarily, the families of the Israelis who are imprisoned in Gaza. But he's trying to do something. What is he trying to do? He's trying to make it out as if the negotiating delegation, all of them are with him. Yesterday, I even quoted that, by the way. I quoted it from the office of Benjamin Netanyahu, not knowing that they published this without the consent of the head of the Mossad. I heard them say that the head of the Mossad is saying what the prime minister wants in terms of conditions is necessary to achieve the objectives of the war. But now there's a denial. There's a denial from the office. Now they're calling it a rift. The rift between Netanyahu and the heads of the Mossad and Shin Bet confirms the fear. Confirms the fears, okay? That was published in, bear with me a second, that was published in the Israeli newspaper. Where are we? Ynet. That was published in Ynet. Okay. Clearly, he's doing stuff that are not in line with them. And again, they're quoting the people, the families of the Israelis who are imprisoned in Gaza, that they are trying to hinder what's happening. The latest voices heard from Netanyahu in his office mark two extremely worrying developments. One, a public hardening of the Israeli government's position on the core issues of the negotiations, the very publication of which is delaying the talks and insisting on them could cause the negotiations to explode. So they're very serious about this. The second development is the same open rift between Netanyahu and the heads of the security establishments. The statement for the families of the abductees in Israel said various security sources claim that the prime minister is setting conditions that will prevent a deal. Where are they getting this information from? Many of them have contacts within the security establishment. You're talking about people who are Israelis, who have people, who know people working, obviously, in the security establishment. They talk with representatives apart from Benjamin Netanyahu. They don't just talk with they hardly talk to Benjamin Netanyahu. So they said that, obviously, various security sources claim that the prime minister is setting conditions that will prevent a deal. We have been waiting for our loved ones for 284 days and nights. That's the headquarters for the families of the abductees in Israel. Every minute is eternity for us, and every second is hell. We cry out and are shocked by the irresponsible behavior that could cause a missed opportunity that may never come back. It's now or never. This is what the families of the abductees in Israel are saying. Well, they've had instances previously where they pushed really hard for the government to reach a deal, especially with previous reports that the negotiating delegation agreed on a deal, but Benjamin Netanyahu did not agree on a deal. And now they are fuming with him. And there are more and more worrying voices coming from Israel, from analysts, from the media, from the security establishment. And one of the things that's causing a lot of anger, obviously, is the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu is lying about the fact that the head of the Mossad is agreeing with him, with his hard stance, and his office obviously published a statement that the head of Mossad said all of the conditions that Benjamin Netanyahu is keen on are necessary for the war, including the continuation of the war. Although, what did the head of the Mossad say? Now we had the report, obviously. He said that it's necessary for us to go back to the war if it's proven that Hamas breached the agreement. That's a very different thing to saying we can go back to the war whenever we want. That's the first part that I want to talk to you about. The second part that I want to talk to you about, and that's from multiple sources, Western sources, Arab sources, and Israeli as well. And these two reports were from Ynet, by the way. Benjamin Netanyahu is due to visit the United States. Worrying developments coming from Lebanon. What are these developments? Okay. Firstly, the military is conducting operations that mimic the full occupation of the southern part of Lebanon, starting from the Golan Heights. Now, so far, most of the talks that we had about Lebanon spoke about an Israeli invasion from the Lebanese borders, the South Lebanon borders, apart from the Golan Heights. However, latest developments show that Israel is training to occupy also from the Golan Heights, something similar to what they did with the ground invasion in Gaza, in the manner that they invaded Gaza. They began from the north, they went through the coast. They didn't go through, so they went from the coastal line, the western side, not the eastern side, because they knew the eastern part would have been hell on earth immediately, because the resistance would have prepared, mines and everything would have been exploded in them. Not that they had an easy task, but probably an easier task doing that, trying to avoid additional deaths. Obviously, they're facing hell, they're defeated anyway, but if they invaded from the east, they could have probably faced much harder conditions. Now, if they are planning to attack Lebanon from the Golan Heights, they could probably make the resistance of Hezbollah less fierce when it comes to these areas. Excuse me, let me rephrase that. They could potentially avoid a higher death toll by invading from that region. The resistance will be fierce regardless. And that's obviously assuming that Hezbollah is not preparing for them to invade from that region. Even the Palestinian resistance, they still landed lethal blows on them in that area. Okay, what else? More reports about them not only saying that they want to occupy Lebanon, they want to reach up to the Litani River. And why is that development new, by the way, from the Golan Heights too? It's because the two attempts, we had attempts of invasion, don't forget that, two attempts of invasion that were immediately taken down by Hezbollah, and all of the special forces, they fell casualties, killed and wounded. And they were from Golani Special Forces, and this brigade is obviously the one with the most experience in Lebanon, and obviously the oldest Israeli brigade. Okay, occupation up until the Litani. Listen to the delusions. 40 kilometers approximately from the Israeli-Lebanese borders, they want to go up there. Okay, another thing we're hearing, they are planning supposedly an extremely heavy bombardment when it comes to South Lebanon and the southern suburb of Beirut, Al-Dahiya Al-Janubiyya, if they go on an all-out war similar to what they've done in Gaza. And that's the latest, Benjamin Netanyahu, on his trip to the US, he will be asking for a full approval from the United States to go on an all-out war with Lebanon. And he will try and get this legitimacy from the Congress, if not from the president, and he will try and stir more division, although many people warned him from stirring these divisions. He used to do that from the Obama era, by the way. He had feuds with him, and he had speeches in the Congress that were against him too. And he started to hinder the relations with the United States. He will try and get the full okay and full legitimacy and try and convince policymakers and politicians in the US to support Israel with whatever it needs when it comes to the military attack on Lebanon. All of what he's doing, by the way, including the statements that we heard and the feedback from Hamas, who are leading, obviously, the negotiations, saying that Benjamin Netanyahu is deliberately delaying this and he could explode the negotiations too, similar to some of the voices that are coming out from Israel, hint that Benjamin Netanyahu is about to repeat the same moves that he's done previously, giving people false hopes, showing that he is negotiating for the sake of negotiation, something that he was blamed for by the people in the negotiating delegation, adding conditions that make it impossible to reach a solution during the negotiations. Remember previously what we had in terms of reports with the negotiating delegation. They'll say we'd receive certain orders in the morning, and then we'll receive different orders in the evening. We will reach a certain development. All of a sudden, Benjamin Netanyahu will come up with these obstacles that will make it impossible. Why is he doing all of that? To show the US, to show the Israeli public that we are negotiating. It's not that we're not negotiating, but only for the purpose of negotiations, not for the purpose of reaching a deal. That's why every time you try to reach an agreement, he'll come with something to explode it in the end. He will add something, he will hinder it, he will come out with a statement. He will make something impossible for the negotiating delegation. He used to ban them from going, don't forget that. In the early days when it was kind of easier for him to do whatever the hell he likes. He used to ban the head of the Mossad from negotiating, not send the delegation at all, go with mission impossible demands, and then come back for no reason, knowing that he's not going to get any results. All of that. He's clearly going down the same path. And another thing that the negotiating delegation mentioned previously, one of them on the basis of anonymity, he said approximately, that was 4 months ago approximately, he said by the current pace, with the current pace that the negotiations are going in, we will be negotiating for at least 1 year. And here we are in month 10. 4 months later, they're still negotiating. After we were already very close, after Hamas accepted the ceasefire deal, after this, almost agreed on everything, reports from Israel that the thick lines have been met, we agreed on the principles, but Benjamin Netanyahu is still keen. All of these moves hint that he will be repeating the same mistake. Well, to him it's not a mistake, but he will be doing the same thing. Completely blowing up the negotiations and bringing them back to point zero. The last time he blew them up, when he refused the acceptance of Hamas, they started negotiating from the beginning. Don't forget that. And despite that, we still had Israel conceding to a very large extent. Obviously, we've seen flexibility from Hamas too. We heard about talks about them not potentially running the civil side and having 2,500 people that everyone agrees on to run phase 2 of the war, right? Something that I spoke about yesterday, and that in effect does not hinder Hamas controlling Gaza, by the way, because you have all of the Israeli army in Gaza. At one point you had approximately 100,000 troops, approximately 90,000, not 2 divisions, and Hamas was still fighting. So what are 2,500 people going to do? Like some people think, oh my God, Hamas giving up. They're not giving up anything. If anyone does anything that they don't like, they'll go and then take them down. It's simple as that. But all of that leads to the notion and the assumption that Benjamin Netanyahu is about to explode everything with what he's doing. And we could potentially be seeing a full war with Lebanon without ending the war in Gaza. The understanding and the advice from the military and security establishment from Israel was, from several people in the security establishment, by the way, to the government, end it with Gaza, even if it doesn't mean full victory, even if you defeat 90% of the Hamas, again, all lies. Take some rest, take a breather, refresh the army, replenish the army, and then go on an all-out war with Lebanon. But clearly, with what Netanyahu is doing now, his assumption is Hamas is exhausted, right? And even if he goes on an all-out war with Lebanon, it won't really affect what's happening in Gaza, because Gaza is destroyed. Hamas to him is weaker. And we can still carry out the military campaign, whether it's phase 2 or 3, whatever they describe it, with full forces deployed or forces only there in certain bases and having certain campaigns whenever they want. And they've already tried and tested all of these phases in the past 8 months. At one point, they had 90,000, 2 divisions. At one point, they had only several hundred in the Netzarim line and in the Philadelphia corridor. So he might be thinking, I don't have to have all of the forces in Gaza, right? And I can still go on all-out war with Lebanon. Although the Secretary General of Hezbollah already withdrew, he took the carpet from under the table of Netanyahu by saying, no one has to talk to us. If there's a ceasefire in Gaza, we'll have a ceasefire in Lebanon. That message resonates in Israel. Why? Because the Israelis who are concerned are listening. So they will say, oh, hold on a second, you want to go on an all-out war? Some of them will be pleased. Some of the people of the north, because they know they can't come back, they're pushing Benjamin Netanyahu to go on an all-out war with Lebanon. But others will think he's taking us into oblivion, destruction, doomsday. And these are terms that have been used by top figures in Israel. That's what I wanted to share with you in this live stream. And let me open the space up for all of you. Again, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, today we only had a live stream so far, no videos. But as usual, I'd rather be with you in the live stream than obviously miss it. Let me open up 2 chats here. And obviously, if you wouldn't mind, if anyone has anything for me, just highlight it. And apologies in advance if I would miss some of the comments, by the way. And again, the Incog, Koopa Koop, Daniela Modus Cutter, DF0011, and Kirk Duckerty, thank you so much for your supers. Kirk saying, bless you, brother, for your great drawing. Thank you so much, my brother, for your dedication and long membership. Look at your badge, golden badge, brother Kirk. And Daniela saying, thanks for all your hard work, and thank you so much, Daniela, for your dedication. Koopa Koop, Biden is Hamas. He is also Z. Biden, what a... Look, at least he gives us a laugh. Come on. I'd like to welcome the President of Ukraine, the courageous President of Ukraine, President Putin. President Putin. And the Incog, ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. Thank you so much, my brother. Listen, Biden always makes me laugh. Biden is special. Biden is special. And the world map should change now. Mexico is in Egypt, Russia is in Ukraine. I mean, you can get away with Russia and Ukraine, they're close and disputes and stuff. Okay. Jihad El-Aidi, thank you for your membership, my friend. You're saying, I heard about Jordan possibly joining NATO. Any truth to that? Look, NATO obviously is the European arm of the United States. There is no other way to describe it. NATO doesn't work for the security of Europe. NATO doesn't work for the national interests of the people. NATO doesn't work for the economic interests of the people of Europe. What they've been doing for the past 2 years proves just that. Economically, they ruined Europe. From a security perspective, they're leading us to World War III with potentially nuclear bombs. Countries like Britain and other countries are talking about the draft and conscription. That's an utter failure. All of that is by the NATO. And now they're trying to push other countries. And how are we assuming that? Okay, you're talking about Jordan. It's not just Jordan. Today, the Turkish president said we will refuse to have any sort of cooperation with Israel through NATO, okay, because Turkey is a member of NATO, Turkey. Okay. China, what did they say the other day? That the United States is forming an Asian NATO, Southeast Asian NATO, okay? They're trying to expand all of this coalition. There's potentially talks with Jordan. They obviously had certain other agreements with other countries and drills and what have you, countries participating as observers, which traditionally hints at a closer link between the organization and the countries. And now they're trying to drag Arab states. Now Jordan. What's surprising about Jordan? Listen, Jordan, do you know Jordan had the top command of the Arab armies in 1948 to support Palestine, okay? Who's leading Jordan? The same people that were appointed by Britain. What was Britain? We had the British Mandate of Palestine. There are people who handed Palestine to Israel, okay? To the Israelis, to the Zionists. Their aim was to take away the weapons from the people and make it easier for the Israelis to go in. They committed to the British mandate, like the Saudi royal family at the time, Al Saud, that they do not object and they will not hinder an Israeli occupation, the formation of Israel on the land of Palestine. So there's nothing surprising there. They're the same country that helped Israel by intercepting Iranian missiles. So what if they join the NATO? What will be different? Obviously, they will have a more hostile approach, potentially with Iraq and Iran, of course. They will have even more tensions with Syria, who are already having problems with the NATO, and you obviously have the US based there. But in terms of Jordan as a government, there's nothing surprising there. There's nothing surprising there whatsoever. And these dealings and these coalitions, they're not really new. Even if they're not actively a member of the NATO, you've had Arab countries attacking other Arab countries under the banner of NATO, right? Didn't we have that before? Every time the Arab states, some of the Arab states, every time there's a war against another Arab state, they will participate, and you will hear them, wow, loud and sending army and military. When it comes to Israel, no, we condemn, and no. And we're not ready for war. But they act all brave against other Arab states, right? And they go with coalitions. Hell, when the United States asked them or ordered them to support them with Afghanistan when the Soviet Union was there, they were calling for jihad in Afghanistan. The American jihad, the type of jihad that America supports. So what is surprising us there? It's nothing surprising. Nothing surprising. How likely is it for it to be implemented? I'm not sure. Because they still have the links, they still have the, ties They're still bound by them. So there's nothing surprising there. Sumaira, thank you so much for your super. And also, so Cisco, they're saying Russia should join NATO. I know he's saying that as a joke, but do you know what they had now? What reports they have? They're saying that the decision to add Ukraine to the NATO is irreversible. The US, by adding more Eastern European countries to the NATO, they were already breaching agreements that they had with Russia in the 90s. Now, talking about Ukraine joining the NATO, yeah, that means adding more fuel to the fire, which is what they want. They want to add fuel to the fire. Imagine Ukraine joining the NATO. What does that mean? That means that Russia and a NATO member are in active war. That means Russia and NATO are at war. That means Russia and the US are at war. And obviously some European countries are concerned about that. Saad Muhammad, how long can Israel run this Gaza campaign, Brother Mahmoud? What's their time limit according to you? Look, Israel is not really carrying out the campaign, the genocide in Gaza very well. Israel is being defeated. Israel is being humiliated. Israel is suffering economically. Israel's image is awful. Israel is suffering politically. Israel is suffering on a societal level. They've already done so much damage. Anyone with a sound mind would have stopped this from a very long time ago. If anyone had a sound mind, they wouldn't have gone on the operation, as they did, by the way. They would have done something else. But if they did go ahead with the operation, and they saw the results, or the lack thereof, they would have stopped. You take a step back, because war, when you talk about war, that's something that's like reviewed by the second, right? Because people are killed. You need to constantly review it. What am I doing? Am I achieving my objectives? So they've been suffering from day one. Stop it, take a step back. But they're led by a narcissistic psychopath fueled with racism and arrogance. And he's leading the country. He's leading the country that already enables such behavior, by the way. People need to remember that. It's not just Netanyahu, it's Israel as a state, enabled obviously by Western powers too. Judging by all of that, they're not really doing very well. How long can they continue? They can go ahead with a war of attrition and keep limited numbers in Gaza in and out at the expense of constantly getting killed and suffering more and more and more for several years. It will be devastating and they will cause more damage. But they can do that and function, you know what I mean? As in remain a functioning country. That's unless you have some sort of a revolution. Because so far you have what's labeled as a cold civil war in Israel. A cold civil war means civil war, but without the killing, basically. It's a matter of time up until a cold civil war becomes a hot civil war. And you have all of the reasons for that to happen. So anyone who would continue this war would be risking an all-out explosion. You already have millions fleeing. You have lack of stability. Apart from the people who fled Israel altogether in their millions, you have the hundreds of thousands who were evacuated from their homes. People said we lost the north and we lost the area surrounding Gaza already. We're no longer a sovereign state. Hell, Blinken said Israel has lost sovereignty in the north. So all of that signals that they're already in a very bad situation. Now, if they manage to cause that level of damage and destruction in 10 months, and they decide to drag this for years, what's going to happen? The Palestinian people are not just going to vanish, although they are committing an ethnic cleansing campaign against them. The Palestinian resistance is not going to vanish. The people surrounding, supporting the resistance fronts are not going to vanish. And the people are not going to vanish in general. The millions of people who are observing what's happening religiously, apart from the hundreds of millions who raised some sort of awareness. So they can do that, but at the risk of having an inner explosion, a total explosion. And I mean not a cold civil war, a hot civil war where people will start taking arms against each other. And we had hints of that, by the way. We had hints of violence. We had Israelis attacking military bases. Tal HaShomer, the biggest one in Israel, we spoke about it a couple of times, burnt once, and then reservist threw a grenade on it. Brigades in the army fighting. The defense minister threatening the prime minister with bringing a brigade to his office. That's in the beginning of the war. What's all of that? All of that is bad news for them. But Netanyahu is still there. Mahmoud, if Israel goes in all-out war, Lebanon will Houthi and Iran join the war. Thank you, brother. Welcome, brother. They will, look, Iran is already in indirectly. The Yemeni front will probably increase, so will the Iraqi. So I think if we go in an all-out war, the first front that will escalate massively is the Iraqi front. Because of geographical reasons, and because of historical links, and because it's easier to escalate. But we will also see an escalation from Ansarullah in Yemen. But in my opinion, the biggest front that will be escalating is Iraq. That's not like participating with them from Lebanon necessarily, but through certain attacks. And again, another thing that might explode is the reactivation of attacking US bases in Iraq. Because Iran and the US had an understanding in January to halt the Iraqi resistance attacks on US bases in Iraq and in Syria, and that did happen, but they continued attacking Israel. If they go on an all-out war with Lebanon, that will create a new equation, which will potentially mean they're going to go back there again, and the United States does not want that. But again, they're enabling a country that's pushing for all of this. And Nibel Fai is saying Lebanese army is a strong and a perfect army. IDF won't be able to face any army. It happened in Iraq and Syria and elsewhere. I would doubt that, because the people who are the most well-equipped in Lebanon is Hezbollah, and everyone knows that in Lebanon. The Lebanese army did get stronger with the years, but nowhere near the capability of Hezbollah. If it was up to the Lebanese army, Israel would have remained in Lebanon. And the people who expelled Israel from Lebanon were the Lebanese resistance, joined obviously by some Palestinian resistance groups as well, and not the Lebanese army. As a matter of fact, the official Arab armies. Now, who do we have? Like the only like really capable, the Arab army that is seriously capable of fighting Israel hard and potentially beating them is the Egyptian army. But obviously, you know the policies of Egypt and their government. But in terms of army as an establishment, They went and destroyed Iraq to destroy the army as well. Was one of the strongest armies in the world. But Lebanon is nowhere near. Lebanon is Hezbollah in terms of power. Faraz Hussein, thank you so much in Koopa Koop. Koopa Koop, special shout out to Abdel Fattah al-Maksiki. Faraz Hussein, Jum'ah Mubarak, same likewise, my brother. Is there ceasefire or is it BS? It looks like it's BS because Netanyahu is pushing all of the wrong buttons. Marvin Vergus, wouldn't it be fun if Biden said President Sinwar? We're getting there. We're getting there. Yeah, I spoke with President Sinwar and he said that the Israeli hostages are doing very well. And then he'll do that. And then he'll realize what he's done. Studio Reino, thank you so much. He said, do you think Israel is using Epstein blackmail since even former CIA say this war makes no sense? The US should control Israel, but it seems like Israel has full control of the US. Can't think of any other explanation. 100% spot on. And not that that's an exclusive thing, but 1,000,000%. Firstly, the Epstein network. Did we get the details? No. Why? And his shady death, by the way. And Maxwell, why are we not seeing all of the details? She's in custody. Plus, if that was the network and Epstein was the front, is it still active? Then another thing. If we only knew about Epstein, who do we not know about? These are the most successful networks, the ones that you don't hear about, run by someone. You see, the most powerful tool that the people in power have is remaining anonymous and unknown. The people who call the shots, the people who do certain things. But definitely, I mean, you have a recipe for mass blackmail, corruption, bribery, threats. Because of course, how can you explain it? How can you explain it? But that's definitely spot on comment. Thank you again for your super, much appreciated, my friend. Cisco Terra saying there's lots of people running around saying we have to vote Biden, otherwise Trump will throw everyone in jail. It's the same argument that they try and sell people to choose between two evils. Vote for the alternative. You have alternatives. Vote for them. Push for them. And how do they make you vote for this one or the other? By selling you the notion that they don't have any chance to succeed. So that in the general population psyche, oh no, there's no point in me voting for them. Independent people, new people coming up, because, you know, it's going to... This is how they fool you. So when there's an alternative, vote for the alternative. Vote for the alternative. Yeah, there's a strong argument that the vast majority will vote either Republicans or Democrats. Like we had in the UK, most people either Tories or Labour, like Labour won. But you still had a very big push for independent people coming in the local election and the general elections too. And that's important because these changes don't happen all at once, you know. But they happen gradually, but it's important to go away from this two-party system, 2 or 3-party system in certain cases. What is that? 2 parties. And in many cases, by the way, same policies. And in many cases, same donors. They will just switch sometimes. Follow the money. Ooh. Who's spending money? Who's donating? Right? And both parties will lobby for certain groups to donate for them. And if I'm paying you 100 million, what do I not want anything in return as a donor? What do they do because of the Trump's hair? Or because they love Biden? They want their interests. Where are we? Komanak Keltik, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. He said USA will say the Islamic Republic of Iran isn't a democracy, and they support a literal monarchy. The